My name's Serena and welcome to my channel where I attempt to explain what seems like complex political issues in a very simple way. So first of all, I'm going to be explaining the political spectrum and what it means to be left or right. This tends to be a topic that confuses many people. A lot of people tend to think they should be maybe left-wing because that's what they see on social media and that's what most of their friends are. A lot of older people think maybe they should be right-wing because that's what their friends voted for. Obviously, whether you're left or right doesn't just depend on the people around you. It really depends on how you think and how you see the world. And obviously, left and right aren't black and white concepts. You don't have to be fully left wing or fully right wing, and you can like elements of both, in which case you might be a centrist. So centrists tend to fluctuate between voting for parties that are traditionally left or traditionally right. So, I mean, an example of a centrist party could be Labour under Tony Blair, where they kind of shifted more towards the centre and adopted more right-wing economic policies combined with more left-wing social policies. Centrist parties to this day would more likely be known as Liberal Democrats because they went into coalition with the Conservative government, who are more right-wing, but also they align with the Labour Party on several issues. To go further in explaining left and right, two political theorists called Lipset and Rokkan theorised in the last century that people vote according to their class. So as left-wing parties tend to redistribute wealth, so provide more money for benefits in the education system through things like higher taxes, which are mostly paid for by wealthier groups, poorer people in society tended to vote for left-wing parties, whereas more wealthier people tended to vote for more right-wing parties because they wouldn't distribute their money in such a way, as they would be the ones funding these initiatives through the tax system. However, due to the rise of the middle class dominating the country since the 1980s, this model of voting doesn't tend to apply anymore. So previously, more working class people would vote left wing because they obviously wanted more money redistributed to them for wealthier groups, and more upper class people would vote right wing. But now there's been a rise of the middle class, who are kind of neither really rich nor really poor, so they could technically vote for either party, which meant that the parties, the left wing and the right wing parties, had to both kind of move their politics towards the centre to try and win these voters over. So middle class voters tend to be fairly wealthy, but they also tend to be affected by things such as education and health, as most of them use the state for these systems rather than paying privately. Therefore, they're typically more centrist in their political views, which is why both parties move to win them. So this has led to some issues that have traditionally been left or right now being supported by left and right parties alike, such as gay marriage and abortion. I mean, the Conservative government, along with the Liberal Democrats in the coalition, introduced the Gay Marriage Act through their tenure. So that just goes to show the difference that centrist politics can really make. So these issues such as gay marriage are known as consensus issues, meaning that both parties have the same stance on them. Now, whether you're left or right wing really depends on your own views on several issues, which I can explain now. So we tend to vote based on certain issues rather than our class these days, obviously because class does not really matter so much, given that there isn't such a stark divide between working class and upper class as there was in the past. So now for explaining if you're left wing. So if you're left wing, you essentially believe that the government should take a bigger role in people's lives. You believe that public transport, education and health and other public systems should be entirely funded by the government, and that they should be made available to everyone in the country, and that these services should be free at the point of delivery, therefore. A left-wing person also believes that the government should provide significant funds for benefits to help those less fortunate in society. These might include things like tax credits to help working families who might struggle with both working and childcare, disability benefits to help those unable to work to maintain a livelihood, and job seekers allowance to fund those out of work whilst they look to find another job. As these ideas need to be heavily funded, left-wing people are more sympathetic to imposing higher taxes on wealthier groups in order to fund these initiatives and redistribute income to the poorest in society, who might not be able to receive it otherwise. Regarding law and order, left-wing people tend to be more lenient, understanding that people may commit a crime due to the poor circumstances that they found themselves in. Therefore, left-wing people tend to favour initiatives such as community service for low-level crime and tend to be against the harshest punishments such as the death penalty. In essence, left-wing people acknowledge that the circumstances that people are born into or may later find themselves in can impact their life chances, and believe that the state should intervene to ensure that everybody is given the same opportunities in life, regardless of their wealth and abilities. So now for explaining right wing. So if you are right-wing, you believe that the state should take a smaller role in people's everyday lives and are more sympathetic to the view that people should be left alone with little government intervention into their lives. So right-wing people tend to support the idea of aspiration and a meritocracy. So they believe that people who are capable of success will achieve this regardless of the help that the government puts in or the circumstances that they're born into. So right-wing people are also hostile to the idea of high taxes, mostly due to this idea of meritocracy. And if people have earned lots of money, why should they have to redistribute it, given that's kind of their earnings and that's their contribution to society? Whilst most right-wing people do believe that the government should provide support to those less fortunate, they tend to view this as a safety net and argue that this shouldn't be provided unless absolutely necessary. Therefore, benefits to people in need and financial support packages to public services under right-wing governments tend to be smaller than those given under left-wing governments. Right-wing people also believe in the idea of a free market rather than public ownership of services. Rather than the state providing or paying for one education, health, or transport service, right-wing people believe that several of these services should be in place at the same time so that they can compete with each other to provide the best services and provide the best value for money for their users. This also ties in with another key element of right-wing thinking, which is individual choice. Right-wing people believe that the public should have the choice between, say, educating their child at a private school or at a public state school, and they also believe that people should have the option for paying for private healthcare if they want to or have the funds to do so. Regarding crime, right-wing people tend to be tough on crime and believe in imposing harsh sentences. They tend not to examine the causes of crime so much and focus on more punishment for the crime itself. So those who support the death penalty tend to be right-wing in line with these views. In essence, right-wing people believe that all who are capable of achieving their ambitions should be able to do so, regardless of circumstances that they are born into or may find themselves in. And they also favour implementing meritocratic institutions such as grammar schools to facilitate this and make sure that all who are ambitious are able to reach their full potential in society. So now on to centrists, who are neither left nor right-wing and believe in ideas from across the political spectrum. Centrists believe that there should be good public systems funded by the government, but that private providers should also be in place to provide choice. This would ensure that free education and healthcare, for instance, is available for those who cannot afford to pay for it, but also that alternative services are available for those who can and want to use them. That's the centrists believing in kind of the more right-wing idea of individual choice. Centrists also tend to believe in the right-wing idea of the free market, but are sympathetic to the left-wing idea of regulation, believing that the government should regulate the market to ensure that goods are offered at fair prices and that jobs remain secure and don't depend on market fluctuations. Most, but not all, centrists also tend to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. This means that they believe in right-wing economic policies, such as the free market and lower taxes, and left-wing social policies, such as free healthcare, education, and a greater provision of welfare benefits, which kind of epitomises the Labour government under Tony Blair and why they were very much seen as centrists. So thanks for listening.